America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. I have asked the Congress to provide the legislative authority and the funds to fuel this kind of an offensive.
It is time to tax and regulate marijuana like alcohol. It is time to end the arrests of so many people and the destruction of so many lives for possessing marijuana.
Racism is built in to the war on drugs. Historically, it has always been so. I don't think legalizing marijuana will miraculously make that go away. I do think that to begin to tackle the problem of racial bias within the police, legalizing marijuana is a first step, but there are so many other laws that would need to be addressed as well. You know, one of the reasons that there are so many men of color, women of color as well, that are in jail for nonviolent drug offenses is because they're being stopped by the police, you know, numerous times, whether it's driving or whether it's walking down the street. So stop and frisk laws or pretext stops with cars is part of the problems. There's a number of laws we would need to change, and it's a cultural shift. But we have a problem with racism and drug laws in this country, and legalization would start to put us on the right track, but is not going to be the magic bullet.
The war on drugs wasn't actually about drugs at all. It was actually about race. They were implemented onto the black community, and it was meant to destroy the black community so that the white community can thrive or can continue to thrive the way that it is now. I think legalization of marijuana will help cut that down. You know, because if you think about it, drugs are usually associated with delinquency, like people of color, minorities. So it's going to just change the view of all of that going on right now.
The rate of use of drugs is about the same, and if anything, white people tend to use drugs, certain drugs, even more frequently than their counterparts of color. But folks of color are locked up at a minimum of 3 times more frequently, sometimes much higher to 4, 5, 6 times more frequently.
Politicians pick an issue that they know if they pump it up, it will instill fear in their constituency. And then they offer themselves as the solution to this fear that they've created. And that's what happened with marijuana. It was a fear of Mexican immigrants who used marijuana. It was the fear of black jazz musicians who used marijuana. It was a misunderstanding, not knowing that marijuana was hemp, not knowing that marijuana was cannabis. Because if they had called it cannabis, everybody would have said, Grandma uses cannabis for her arthritis. That's not dangerous stuff. I know what that is. They had to make up a new word. This marijuana word was used in order to deceive people from understanding what they were talking about. They made it sound as though there was this new Mexican drug coming out to the market.
The war on drugs has been successful because there's been a lot of fear-mongering.
But I want to tell you about something that has everyone buzzing. Something that concerns mature boys and girls just like you. Something called grass. Not that grass. I'm talking about marijuana. You may have heard of it. You may have seen someone smoking it, like those burnout bohemians or that crazy-eyed custodian at your school. Rolled in zigzags, or puffed from 7th period woodshop projects, the smoke from this plant causes a brief state of euphoria, immediately followed by permanent insanity. Users are prone to unpredictable behavior, including junk food binges, joyride, and a sudden urge to wear sunglasses at night.
Marijuana shrinks your testicles. Marijuana makes you sterile. Marijuana causes birth defects. Marijuana causes breast growth in men. Marijuana turns you into a pacifist, so you won't fight in Vietnam. Marijuana does this, marijuana does that, marijuana does this. The truth is, all those things are fabricated lies. They're part of a propaganda campaign run by our government.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
And everything I had been told about marijuana, I realized instantly when I tried it and learned more about it, I learned I had been lied to about it.
Marijuana is an intoxicating, mind-muddling drug. Its use can lead to abnormal behavior, to psychological dependence, and to abuse of other drugs.
The entire concept of the gateway drug is a fallacy. It's a lie.
I do have my bowl of pot in my house, and if I wake up at night in that nightmare when I'm wringing wet with sweat, and I see Kramer, his dead body, Rodriguez, his dead body, if that nightmare gets so bad, I can't wake up and realize it's just a nightmare, I will light that pipe up, I'll be a criminal, I'll go back to sleep, but next morning I will get up at 6 o'clock like I always do. Now 4 days a week I go to the gym, I run, I help other veterans. I couldn't do that if I was on them damn drugs the VA had me on.
Exactly. So for all the talk you hear of marijuana being a gateway drug, in his case, that gateway led to peaceful sleep, rigorous exercise, and community service. Pretty nice fucking gate, it turns out.
There is no evidence showing that the use of marijuana leads to the use of stronger drugs. There's lots of evidence that contact with drug dealers leads to the use of very strong drugs. And the gateway effect is actually completely associated with prohibition itself. If it weren't for the fact that cannabis were prohibited, then drug dealers would not use it as an entree into the youth market.
Shouldn't be ashamed for something that if it helps me and makes me feel good and I'm not hurting anyone.
Split it, light it, blazer. From the mind of a stoner, from the mind of a stoner. Simple thoughts from a loner, simple thoughts from a loner. Just the mind of a stoner, from the mind of a stoner. Simple thoughts from a loner, simple thoughts from a loner.